If you have a parent who is showing cognitive decline, memory loss, but you're sitting there wondering, I don't even know how I even really feel about this person, then this video is for you. This is a hard topic to talk about, even when your parent was a model parent, let alone when the relationship wasn't emotionally supportive or nurturing in the first place. Today, we're going to talk about these difficult topics, and we're going to look at what is your responsibility and what's not your responsibility. Hey everyone, I'm Sara Vandenburg, founder of the Tenali Healing Services. Today, I'm very happy to introduce my sister, Susanna Smith, Master of Gerontological Studies. Susanna is an expert in the study of aging. She's worked extensively with older adults and with their families for end-of-life care and for medical needs. So today, we're going to blend the emotional aspects and the logistical and practical aspects. So let's dive in. Caring for a parent who hurt you is not the same as caring for a parent who was a model parent. When there is a history of emotional abuse, addiction, neglect, personality disorders, cognitive decline does not simply make the relationship make sense. It doesn't make the relationship simple or sweet. It actually complicates the grief process quite a bit, because now we're grieving three different things. The parent that you wish that you had, the parent that you never had, and the parent that you're losing. All three of these things can exist at the same time. And this is where people feel guilt for not feeling enough, anger for feeling too much, or fear for not really feeling anything at all. And all of those are normal, and none of those are wrong. None of those make you a bad person. So let's go ahead and look at it. Before we even get into the emotional aspects, Susanna, I'd really like for you to help us understand, what does it look like when someone is having cognitive decline?
Yeah, first off, thank you for having me and giving me the chance to talk about this topic that's near and dear to my heart. One of the biggest misconceptions about cognitive decline is that it always starts with memory. In reality, for many people, the first changes show up in behavior, emotional regulation, judgment, and even personality.
So what might that look like?
Yeah, for families, this can often show up as emotional volatility, impulsivity, poor decision making, and even confusion.
So they're blaming you for things that maybe you didn't do, things they might not have blamed you for before.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Or maybe they're raising their voice and they were always a pretty quiet person.
Right.
Or they're going out into the restaurants and they're being more loud than they ever would have been before.
Exactly.
Okay.
It can show up in those ways.
So kind of like these emotional outbursts that we might even see in children.
Exactly. Someone could show up as more socially inappropriate, more blunt in the way that they speak, and even could become more suspicious. And a lot of times these symptoms show up even before severe memory loss is experienced.
Okay. What would you say is like a normal time frame? And maybe normal doesn't exist. And maybe that's the question I'm asking. But like, what would you say is like a normal time frame between these symptoms that you just mentioned and the cognitive decline?
Yeah, great question. So cognitive decline can actually happen pretty rapidly.
Really?
And oftentimes doesn't have a linear timeline. And different things can bring it on too.
This is what people talk about, right? When they say that, you know, someone had a really good day or a really good week, and then it seems like it's declining rapidly again.
Right. And there can be different things that bring it on too.
So they're like triggers, we might say. Is that appropriate?
Yeah, there can 100% be environmental triggers. There can be, triggers to different interactions with family members. It really is person dependent. Another important thing to remember about cognitive decline is that insight might also decline at the same time.
What do you mean by insight?
What I mean by that is that a person may not realize that they are changing.
So the family might be aware of the symptoms. Okay, and then they're not.
Yeah. I mean, the family is the first alarm bell that goes off. they might notice things before the person who is experiencing the symptoms is really aware of what's going on with them.
Wow. I bet that's really hard. How does a family member confront is probably too strong a word, right? But how does a family member gently ease into that conversation with a loved one?
But this can be really hard to set appropriate boundaries in having these conversations. But the sooner that you are able to have these conversations before cognition and the ability to really like have an honest conversation becomes more impaired down the road, the better it is for every person
So
involved.
do it now.
So do it now. Do it even before there are signs.
Wow, before there are signs. I never even considered that.
Yeah.
Okay. What would you say is a healthy or natural age to just have it in the back of your mind? Like, okay, my dad is 60, right? My mom is 55. Like, I know it's different for everybody, but like, what would you say is general guidance on when we should start having these conversations?
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you reach a point in your relationship with your parent where you can be honest with each other, I wouldn't say that there is a certain age that you should or should not have these conversations, because cognitive impairment can happen really at any age. And so again, the sooner that you have a relationship that feels maybe open and honest, or you as an adult child feel that you're getting to a point with maybe you have siblings and you can appropriately, just talk about long-term planning with that parent, the better.
That makes so much sense. I want to jump in here for the listener and the viewer who may never have that relationship with their parent, right? Because of addiction, emotional abuse, neglect, abandonment, whatever it may be, the relationship has never been safe, and it will never be safe, right? So how did they have these relationships with the parent? From an emotional standpoint, I would think that, one, you have to decide if there's any level of conversation that can be had, right? And if there is, it would be maybe going to that parent and saying, hey, I have some concerns that I'd like to share with you, right? Like coming off really not confrontational.
Right.
Right? Or just saying like, you don't remember that from yesterday? I would think that would be bad.
Yeah.
But just sitting down across from them and saying, hey, I really love you and I care about you and I have some concerns. I have some things that I've been observing. Can we sit down and have a conversation about it? And I would think now is probably a good time to bring in a professional.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if it doesn't feel like it's going to be a safe conversation to have.
100%.
So I would think this is where adult children really get trapped, right? They feel the double bind of the, I should, right? There's that should word. I should take care of my parent because they're declining. And I don't want to take care of my parent because they never took care of me.
Right.
And both can be true.
Yeah.
So now I want to talk a little bit about what is your responsibility and what's not your responsibility from a psychological, emotional standpoint. So let me just start by saying no one is required to sacrifice their mental health, right, in order to care for or caretake somebody who might be bad news for them.
Yeah.
The name of the game here isn't trying to prove that you are a good child, or even that they were a good parent, especially if that wasn't the case at all. So I'm thinking there's a lot of ways to ensure that the parents are not being abandoned in this kind of a situation. So before we even really look at that, Susanna, why don't you tell us some of the options, right, out there for people who are maybe experiencing some of this behavioral symptoms, emotional symptoms, or even cognitive decline? Like, what are options for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And what I do want to emphasize is that there are more than one way to provide care for someone that doesn't put the sole responsibility on that adult child or yourself. Some families choose to opt for in-home care, someone coming to the home a couple of days a week and helping with activities of daily living, such as medication management, scheduling, supervision. And again, that can range just depending on what the level of need is. Another option for adult children and families is to work with a care professional. And this person is especially skilled in understanding how to navigate the care system itself. They can assess the situation, understand the different levels of need, and then work with the families to make a recommendation. And that is especially helpful in taking out some of the confusion, but also the emotional labor that can often be felt on the adult child side of maybe caring for, again, a parent that was not emotionally available for them growing up. It takes some of that guesswork and, emotion out of the decision and into
so
somebody
there's
else's hands.
Assessments, that, is grandma too physically impaired to drive? Right. There's people that can help assess those things.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, and again, takes the onus off of you as the child to not make an emotional decision that wouldn't be in the best interest of yourself or your aging parent.
Okay.
Another option for families, depending on the level of involvement or need that the adult parent might have, are assisted living facilities. And these are good for providing, again, housing, some social engagement, and again, assisting with those activities of daily living that may be difficult on an emotional level for an adult child to maybe provide for their parent. And again, depending on the level of cognitive decline, there are also memory care units, and those are really good for individuals that need specialized care and more structured routines, where the care that maybe you and I could provide for an adult parent wouldn't be in our wheelhouse to really do in a way that's dignified for that person. Another important conversation to have as early as you can are financial and legal planning conversations. So thinking about power of attorney and directives for what you want to do with your life. These types of conversations protect not only the person living with cognitive impairment, but also the child at the end of the day. Having these conversations as early as possible can help with the emotional burden that an adult child can feel when the impairment becomes so severe that you think, wow, like I'm not even talking to my mom or dad anymore. This is a person that I can't even recognize. It protects both individuals at the end of the day to have these conversations before you start showing signs or noticing signs.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I do want to say this pretty clearly and plainly, that choosing professional care is not abandonment. It's actually one of the more responsible and safest options that you can do, especially as, family dynamics feel more complex and caregiving can feel like an emotional and physical labor that can harm your relationship even more if you don't have a relationship that feels super close. And I do want to reiterate that there's no right way in handling an aging parent, especially when the dynamics have been complex.
Yeah, like it's totally okay to just be like, I cannot be your emotional container right now.
Right, exactly. And it's perfectly fine to make decisions that work for you as the individual.
So the biggest things that I heard you say is choosing a structured path can be one of the safest things that you can do. And there are professionals who specialize in this. There's a lot of people you could bring in, whether it be someone who comes into the home, someone who just plans the logistics around things, financial planning, planning around end-of-life care, or potentially even death. That's one of the things that we all are going to experience at some time or another. And sometimes there may even be need for legal advice.
Yeah.
Because this is really complex. But one of the things I also heard you say, and one of the things that I want to reiterate, right, is that you can be compassionate and caring while setting strong, healthy boundaries and doing what's best for you, your parent, or whoever's involved, and the whole family system. So thanks, Susanna, so much for sitting down with me and having this conversation. I hope that we can continue this dialogue at some point in the future. If this video has helped you, please like, subscribe, and post in the comments what you'd love to hear us talk about next. I'd love to hear your stories.